Learning. I exercise every day, I eat food every day, I have a shower or bathe every day. Well, I have a shower every day. Brush my teeth every day, breathe oxygen every day. What about learning, and what about you? What do you do every single day that does add value to your life? And I have a bit of a Rowie mantra. It goes like this: learn, laugh, huff, puff, lift. Learn, laugh, huff, puff, lift. So I like to tick off at the end of every day and think about at the start of the beginning of every day. I want to learn today, I want to laugh today, I want to love my life today, of course. I want to get huffy puffy several times throughout the day. I want to lift heavy things a couple of times, if not once a week. And I want to learn. So for me, it's a driving force. And why is that? Is it possible that the world is, or the world has some challenges because we have stopped learning, or we think we know everything already? Because there's two parts, of course, to a reputation of our ability to learn. So we're either ignorant, so we don't know anything, or we're arrogant, so we come across as knowing everything. The one that I really like is wise. How do we become known as a wise person, not ignorant and not arrogant? And I've spent a lot of my life, unfortunately, coming across as very arrogant, and I wasn't. I didn't know anything. In fact, all I know now as an old lady every day is that the more I learn, the more I know what I don't know. So I just want to keep learning. But when you come across as arrogant, nobody wants to teach you anything. And what's really happening, though, is you're ignorant, you don't know. That's embarrassing. It's bad for your self-esteem and self-confidence, because you don't want anybody to know that you don't know anything. So you pretend that you know everything and you come across as arrogant. And of course, when you're arrogant, the people who do know stuff have no interest in teaching you anything. And I had to learn that the hard way. I really needed to learn a lot of stuff, but I didn't have anybody in my life who wanted to teach me, because I just came across as an arrogant person. And if you've ever met people like that, where they think they know everything, one of my big lessons that I literally uppercut myself with every day, every time I hear myself say, I know that, or I've heard that before, or I know that already, I literally give myself a really good clip up underneath the chin, or a slap across the face, because the biggest barrier to learning is already knowing. And as soon as I say I know that already, what happens to my ability to keep learning? And as an exercise professional, as an educator, as a leader, if you're a parent, a teacher, a coach, a boss, a manager, a preacher, in any kind of leadership position, is it possible that we can't be ignorant? We have to know stuff. We can't come across as arrogant, because that's just a horrible reputation. So would it be really important to come across as being wise? And I don't know what your definition of wise is, and I don't really have one either, except that I think that wise people are the people who understand they don't know everything, but they want to keep learning. And does wisdom come from your ability to realize that you don't know everything, that you want to keep learning? And there's this thing called common sense, which of course my mother used to drum into me, where's your common sense? But I think as I've become an older person now, that I don't think it's very common. I think it should be called uncommon sense, because it seems that the definition of common sense is that we should do that because it makes sense. Well, a lot of the things that you can observe in the world today are more like nonsense, no sense to be made here. So how do we make sure that we don't we're not ignorant? I can't afford to be ignorant. I've got so many things I want to learn. So I'm just constantly learning. If I come across as arrogant, of course, nobody wants anything to do with arrogant people. And if I say to myself, I know that already, punk, then I'm being just being silly. So is there a system for learning? Should we apply some kind of strategy to make sure that we're always learning? And could the number one fundamental question be, do you want to keep learning? There's a lot of people, when they finish school, they probably did their last day at school and said, that's it, I never want to learn anything again. I don't want to do another test. I don't want to open another book. I just don't. I finish with learning. And of course, then there goes our ability to get better at anything. Is it possible that we can't get better at anything unless we're constantly learning? So what are the things that would make sure, is there a foolproof plan to make sure that we keep learning? So for me, it's always, well, every day, Rowie, what do you want to learn today? What did you learn today? And I have a diary. I'm an old-fashioned lady. I still have a diary that I write in. And if you open up my diary and have a look at it, even from a distance, you'll see there's a fair bit of information in there. Because one of the things that I write in here every day is, what did I learn today and how will I apply it tomorrow? Because again, that philosophy of what's the point of learning if you then don't apply what you've learned into your life? So I have a lot of people in my life who they've done a university degree, they've done an honours degree, a master's degree, a doctorate degree, and they keep learning. But if I ask them a question on how to explain what they know, even their ability to explain it in a simple way just doesn't come across. And then they know a lot of stuff about, and let's pick anatomy, physiology, what the human body can do. But then I ask them, do you have a stack of energy? Are you performing at your best? Do you love what you see in the mirror? Are you getting the results that you want from your eating and exercise plan? And a lot of those people don't even have an eating and exercise plan. They're so busy learning that they don't even look after their own body. So there's a great question to ask there. Whatever I need to learn, am I passionate about it? Am I excited about it? And how will I apply it into my life? So I use an interesting, again, personal example. I hated school. I hated being at school. I kept asking myself this question, why are we learning this? What has this got to do with life? I've since learnt that in itself is a very arrogant attitude, because just the discipline of learning is I would like to think that's what we get taught at school. But that was perhaps the disconnect. There was a lot of what you have to learn, but there was very little of why you need to learn it. And I think we might need to make that connection, particularly if we're in a leadership position. It's not just you have to learn this, but why is this important to learn? So as an exercise professional, I now hated school, but now I'm learning every day. Every single day, a very specific part of my day is committed to learning. And maybe that's something to put into your strategy for ongoing get into the habit of learning, which is out of 24 hours, how much of your day would you dedicate every day to your ongoing learning? So for me, it's an absolute bare ass minimum of 30 minutes every day. So whether it's a book or a podcast or a lecture or a seminar or ongoing study of anatomy and physiology, or of neuroscience, which is my new favourite thing to study, because the human brain obviously is absolutely fascinating. And even the people that study the brain on a day-to-day basis and have been doing so for 10, 20, 30 years, that will still share with all of us that we all know very little about how the human brain works. So for me, it's an absolute bare-ass minimum of 30 minutes every day. But sometimes that can be 2 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours, because apart from the fact that I just love to learn, when I can connect what I'm learning to my life. So if what I'm learning is going to make my life better. So I'll use the example, if I'm unhealthy, if I'm unfit, if I'm weak, if I'm overweight, if I'm sick, if I'm diseased, if I pick up germs, bugs and viruses really easy, I could rely on somebody else's opinion to try and help me get healthy, fit and strong, get my body into great shape. But wouldn't it be a much better idea to learn that for myself? There's a lot of people who literally search the internet. They search for the social media gurus who can help them get healthy, fit and strong. But if you learn your anatomy and physiology, how does the human body actually work? How do I get it fit and strong? Is it possible that even if you use an expert, you'd still be able to go there with better questions? So one of the really arrogant things that I used to do, and I see a lot of exercise people do this, they think they know a lot about exercise, and I certainly thought I did too. So when I was confronted with, or when I came in contact with other professional people like doctors, oncologists, cardiologists, endocrinologists, psychologists, I used to think that I was the expert, and I would speak like an expert, which of course is very arrogant. One of the things I've learnt the hard way is, if you really want to learn, then be the person who doesn't know anything. So whenever I have the privilege now of being in the presence of people who study how the human body works, for example, I just ask lots of questions. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges with whatever knowledge we have. It seems that when you're doing the talking, all you're doing is hearing what you already know. If you are with people, would it be a really good idea to ask questions and listen to the answers? Even if you think you know something, is it possible that somebody will know more about that than you? They'll have a deeper understanding about that topic than you do. How about this one? They can explain it better than you do. So one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made when it comes to communication is going into any conversation and doing the talking. If I'm talking, all I'm hearing is what I already know. And the second part of that is, and this is where arrogance comes in, is you think that you're better than other people or you know more than other people. And one of the things, again, that I've learned the hard way is that you can learn from everybody. You can learn from people who don't know anything because you can ask them lots of questions. And there's a bit of a and I'll call this a joke, but it's not actually not very funny. If you want to be successful, perhaps follow the unsuccessful people around and take notes and don't do what they're doing. If you want to be in great shape, maybe follow around some people that are really unfit and unhealthy and weak and have a body that you don't want, and then take notes and don't do what they do. Is it possible we can learn from everybody? So that's my question. So if I want to be healthy, fit and strong, should I study how the human body works so that even if I am in the presence of experts, I can ask intelligent questions, which means I might get much better answers to my intelligent questions. What about career path and business? Is it possible that you could have any career you want? You could go into any business you want as long as you get the right education, training and learning. A lot of people try and convince me that business is complicated. And I don't have a university degree. I didn't finish high school. In fact, I did less of high school than I think I finished at the end of year 9, so I was 14 when I finished high school. So technically that's when my learning finished. But every single day of my life since then, because I actually learnt the hard way that if I wanted to get better at anything, if I wanted my life to be better, I had to learn more. So ever since I finished school at 14, I've been studying and learning and training and doing ongoing education every single day. It's interesting that people will say to me, you can't be successful in business, it's not possible to have a successful business, you can't have a career path that you want. There's a lot of people who tell you can't do and it's not possible. But if you learn, if you study, if you do ongoing education and training, is it possible you can do anything? And one of the things that I think is really important to learn about is other people who have done it. One of the things, I have a big thing about books. I have an extensive library, but one of the things that I don't do anymore is I don't waste any money on books that are technical books written by people that haven't done it. So for example, if you want to own a business, read the books, listen to the people, study the people, learn and do ongoing training about the people that have successful businesses. There's a lot of business books about how to run a business, and I learned the hard way that a lot of those people had never run a business. So I would read a book and go, oh, that makes sense, and I'd apply it to my business, and it would screw me up royally because the person that wrote the book had never run a business. So one of the things that's really important to me and probably a fundamental for me about learning is only learn from the people that have already done it. Only learn from the best of the best. I'll give you an example on wealth creation. One of the things that the world is constantly arguing about, relationships get broken up about, people get unhappy and unhealthy about, is a lack of money. But the interesting thing is that there's no lack of money in the world, it's just a lack of education and training. Could that be possible? And a lot of people say to me, Rowie, if I want to study wealth creation, who should I study? There's a lot of books and courses and seminars and workshops, but my question is always, who's the best in the world at it? And I'm going to use an example. You could study, for example, real estate, or you could study stocks and shares and the share market. There's a gentleman in the world, depending on when you're listening to this, by the name of Warren Buffett. He started being very interested in shares in the stock market and trading when he was a little boy. He couldn't start buying stocks and shares because he was too little and too young. But the minute he was old enough to start buying shares, he did. I think he was 10 or 11 years of age. And his whole life has been dedicated to creating wealth from the stock market, from buying companies, from buying shares. And he's now one of the wealthiest men in the world, again, depending on when you're listening to this, well over 80 years of age, still goes to work and loves it, and happily shares his knowledge and passion for creating wealth with the rest of the world. Now, if I was a person who was interested in stocks and shares and trading on the share market, I'd be looking at the best in the world, not the person who wants to try and sell me a course who's never done it before. And I think that's another fundamental of learning. If you want to learn from people, should you learn from the people that have done it, not talked about doing it? And I'll use Max as a very important example of this, because a lot of people will share with me that it's not possible to have a career in the exercise profession. There's no money in it, there's too many gyms, there's too many personal trainers, it's just not possible. And perhaps in that person's experience that's true, because they've only ever dealt with experienced people who are not very successful in the exercise profession. But the Max program is designed to give you all the skills, tools and knowledge that you need to be successful and profitable in the exercise profession. But where do you think that information came from? It didn't come out of a book, and it didn't come from people who said you can't be successful in the exercise profession. The entire program, the whole toolbox of extensive tools, is based on the very best in the profession. What did they do? How did they get started? What did they learn not to do? What are the mistakes that they've made? And the entire Max program is a toolbox full of how do I become successful as an exercise professional, as a business person, based on the experience of the very best at business. And maybe that's something to really consider. Whatever you want to learn about, whether it's water skiing or gardening or building or buying cars or investing in the stock market or being an exercise professional, being a doctor, shouldn't we study from and learn from the best in the world? And that's probably one of the challenges that I had with school is I would ask questions about people who I thought should know what they're talking about. And there were a lot of school teachers, for example, that were teaching science or history or geography that they were just given a curriculum to teach. They weren't teaching it because they were passionate about it or because they loved it. They just had to teach it because that's what they were told to teach. Well, I don't want to I don't want to waste time with people like that. I want to find the people who are the most passionate about a topic, who are the best in the world at that particular topic. And if they've written a book or they've done a seminar or they've got a podcast or they're available somewhere on social media, they're the people that I want to be involved with. How about you? I don't want to learn from people that are talkers and not doers. And I want to learn from the doers who are doing it at the best, not just average. And that's one of my least favourite words. At least the people that are doing it really badly, you can learn from them because you look at what they're doing and you do exactly the opposite. And obviously you can learn from the best because if the best can do it, then you can do it too. But if you try and learn from average, which is a lot of what education is about, it's a study of average. This is what most people do. This is how most people exercise. This is what jobs most people get. This is how most people live their life financially. So I always look at those 4 big areas of life. And again, as a fundamental of learning, is learn every day. Dedicate a percentage of your day to learning, so make a habit of learning. Have a great library, but fill your library up with books and seminars and podcasts and audio books that are of people who have achieved, not just talking about achieving. And every single day, apply something. So this is a really interesting thing about learning. The human brain, and not that I understand it, but I am studying neuroscience, we can actually only focus on one thing at a time. So this thing about I can multi-skill, even as a woman, we think, oh, I'm a woman, I can multi-skill. I can't focus on more than one thing at a time. So if I say I'm reading a book, or I'm going to a seminar or a workshop, or I'm listening to a lecture, or I'm learning from the best in the world, I can sit through a lecture or read a book and say, okay, what did I learn from that book? There's 10 things that I learned, or 5 things that I learned, or 75 things that I learned. But I can only focus on one at a time. So one of the things I learned a very long time ago is if I go to a workshop or a conference, for example, pick one thing that you're going to apply. Now, you might have 4 or 5 that you think are really great ideas, but make a commitment that whatever I learned, at least one of those things I'm going to apply into my life, which is why I'm in the habit of writing down every day, what did I learn today and how will I apply it into my life tomorrow? because now it's become a discipline, it's become a habit for 20 plus years of my life. Every day, at the end of the day, I literally write down the number one thing in my headspace that I learnt today. A lot of people say to me, Rowie, how can you talk? You do videos every single day, you've got students all over the world, you're constantly producing new information, you're constantly talking and sharing information. How do you do that without any scripts or without anything to read or any PowerPoints or anything? That's because I'm committed to learning. And not only committed to learning, and this is the big overall, committed to learning about what? So my disconnect with school was I couldn't understand why we had to learn that stuff. But imagine if every day at school when you were learning, woohoo, what are we learning today? The information was was based on whatever it is that you want to do with your life. So now for me, the concept of, yes, I want to learn how the human body works. Absolutely. Yes, I want to learn how to help people have a career or business that they love. So I want to be able to help people have a business, have a career, make sure it's successful, make sure it's profitable. What are the fundamentals of all of those things? Of course, connected to that is wealth creation. And I think as an adult, we would be irresponsible if we didn't understand wealth creation, apart from the fact that it's a pretty simple process, and I wish they'd taught me that at school. But a lot of people, even if they have a career that they love, and this was a big part of my life originally, when I first started my career, it was never about I couldn't make any money. I was earning a lot of money when I was 10 years of age. But I didn't know how to save it, invest it, look after it, and develop it into wealth creation. And I think it's a really important connection. Yes, have a career or business that you love that is successful and profitable, but then I need to learn how to do when I've got money, because I will have it. If you're really good at what you do, you will create money. But now what do I do with that money? So how do I become healthy, fit and strong? How do I have a career or business that I love? How do I then turn my wealth into something that will look after me for the rest of my life so I can become financially free? And then the really big one, which is relationships. And one of my big studies every day is always about communication. How do we get better at communicating so that whatever message we've got, we can get it across more clearly? And because there's so many, now 7 odd billion people in the world, and we're all different, we're all unique, we've got different likes and dislikes, we've got different opinions, convictions, beliefs. Should we learn how to communicate with everybody? Is it possible that a lot of the hassle in the world is because we don't understand different personality styles, we don't understand different people, we're disrespectful, so we don't understand cultures and ethnic groups and religions and political persuasions and sexual persuasions, and we just think that everybody should think the same way that we do or believe the same thing that we do, or we communicate aggressively, which is, this is what I believe and you should believe it too. A lot of preaching, teaching and telling rather than let's build a relationship and let's build rapport with people so we can communicate effectively. And if you look at how do I get healthy, fit and strong, how do I have a career or business that I love, how do I create wealth, the next big part of that, of course, is relationships. What kind of people do I want to have in my life? And how am I going to build better relationships with my family, with my partner, with my friends, with my neighbours, with my community, with the government, with the press, with other business associates? That's all about communication. And unfortunately, it seems that the world has become very much, listen to me, I've got an opinion, you can't have your opinion, and if your opinion's different to mine, I'm going to get angry or aggressive with you. And there's that really interesting quote that I use all the time: a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. Is it possible that even if you want to change people's minds and you want people to believe the same thing that you do or the same way that you do, that you need a communication skill to be able to do that? I would ask the question, why do we need to tell people what to do? Why do we need to preach at people? Why do we need to think that our opinion's the only one? If we want to learn, would it be a really good idea? A great communication skill is to be able to ask great questions and listen. Imagine that. Imagine in every conversation that you go into, because you're studying all the time, you're learning constantly, you're doing ongoing training and education. It doesn't matter who you come in contact with. Instead of you doing the talking, which means you're only hearing what you already know, imagine having the communication skill, because you've learnt it, because you're doing ongoing education, training and learning in communication, so that every single person that you come in contact with, you can learn from. And that's one of the really special things that I love about my life, is everybody I come in contact with, I literally have a series of questions. I have a very distinct strategy for how do I get to know people, how do I learn about them, how do I learn from them. And I want to walk away from every conversation having learnt more about, yes, that person, but also more about why they believe the things that they believe. It's one of those very conscious things in my mind when I talk to somebody. What can I learn from this person? And whatever their belief is, why do they believe that? Do they have a conviction or a background or a life experience or a family situation or a religious belief or an ethnic or cultural belief that I could understand better? Because if I don't know why they believe what they believe, if I ask the right questions, could I get a better understanding of where they're coming from? Which means I get to learn. It's very selfish. Instead of me talking, what I want to be able to do is learn from everybody that I come in contact with. So just as an interesting wrap-up of your education, your learning, your training, what do you want to learn about? Do you want to keep learning? Could the biggest barrier to learning be already knowing? Do you want to come across as ignorant or arrogant? And I don't like either of those. Wouldn't it be nice to be considered wise? And then how do we become wise? Is it because we understand that we can't possibly know everything and that we could learn from everybody that we come in contact with? And rather than preaching, teaching and telling what we already know, would it be a really good idea to ask the right questions and listen carefully to the answers so that we can keep learning more? So how much of your day are you committing to learning? What are you passionate about learning about? And even if you're in a situation where you think you can't learn anything, and this is the other time I give myself an uppercut, is it possible that we are never better than anybody else? We're never smarter than anybody else. And somebody taught me this a very long time ago. Rowie, there's always going to be people in your life that are smarter than you and dumber than you. But could you learn from both? And that's not an IQ thing, that's just a different life experience. Some people, and I'll rephrase that, some people are ignorant because they just don't know, they've never learnt. But sometimes ignorance is really, they call this ignorance is bliss. And is it possible that, and I'm a living, breathing example of this, which is why I've still got blonde hair, even though I'm an old lady. I'm too dumb to know that it can't be done. I've met a lot of really intelligent people, highly educated people, because they analyse everything so carefully, they think that it can't be done. Well, I want to keep my ignorance is bliss, so I still want to live like a blonde girl who doesn't know very much. I never want to come across as arrogant, of course, but if I'm ignorant or if people think that I'm ignorant, is it possible that they want to teach me more? So that will be my last question. Do you want to learn from everybody that you come in contact with? Is it possible to learn from everybody? And if the answer is yes, how do we do that? If I'm talking, how could I possibly be learning anything because I'm just repeating what I already know? So what do you want to learn? What are you passionate about? Are you committed to ongoing learning every single day? What are the areas of life that are really important to learn about? Maybe set up a structure for that. What do I need to know about being healthy, fit and strong so nobody can lead me down the garden path? What do I need to know about a career or business so that I can have my own career or business that I love without somebody telling me that it can't be done? What do I need to learn about wealth creation, financial planning so that I never have to have money control my life? And then the really important one, what do I need to keep learning about? Relationships, communication, how to learn more from other people, which of course is a communication skill. So if you have a strategy for learning, learn every day, learn with passion, learn because you want to, learn about the stuff that you're excited to learn about, and then most importantly, how can I keep learning from everybody I come in contact with? And is it possible that if we do that every day, we might get smarter, we might be recognised as being somebody who wants to keep learning, so we won't come across as arrogant? And is it possible that our life will be better? So my mantra as it is, learn, laugh, huff, puff, lift. Learn every day, laugh every day, love your life with passion and enthusiasm, and get puffed on a regular basis, lift some heavy things, and then you'll have a body that's healthy, fit and strong, and a mind that it keeps expanding every day because it's open to learning. And last but not least, if you're not healthy, fit and strong, if your brain is rotting away, if you don't constantly pump brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is fertilizer for your brain, which gets pumped the hardest when you get puffed and when you lift heavy, if you're not looking after your body, is it possible that your brain will rot away and your ability to learn will be limited? So that connection between brain and body, get really fit, get puffed to get fit, get really strong, lift heavy to get strong, and both of those will create a central nervous system that fires up, an endocrine system that fires up, and a brain that then fills up with brain-derived neurotropic factor, so it becomes easier to learn. Wouldn't that be awesome?